Welcome to the TNC Random Fandom Podcast. We are here to have fun and talk all things pop culture, collecting, and nerd culture in general. Make sure you join the conversation during our live stream with our most excellent hosts, Craig Borden and Tommy Mock. Let the shenanigans begin.
So good evening, everybody, and welcome to another evening of TNC Random Fandom on our last Monday night show for the foreseeable future. I am your host, Craig Borden. With me, as always, my lifetime partner here, Tommy Mock. How are y'all doing?
Did you just call me your life partner?
Wookiee thing? Yeah, exactly. So anyway, how are you?
Good. Buddy? I'm good. You know, honestly, I listened to the last episode we did with Gene McGee, and I was just floored. We need to have him on again. I think we should have him as a official, unofficial third member of this this pod that we do, because honestly, he is, again, he's got a wealth of stories, and I enjoy talking to him, and I think you enjoyed talking to him as well.
Correct. And I think we got about 2% of those stories, if that, even out of them the other day when we had him on the show for the Nickelodeon cast. So thank you very much, everybody who did tune in to listen to Mr. Gene McGee with Tommy and I last week. We had a blast. Obviously, we are looking forward to having more fun guests. I've been reaching out to new people every week. Tommy's been reaching out to new people every week. And Tommy, why don't you tell everybody what you hooked everybody up with this weekend? But apparently I'm just going to be a video guy.
Well, so this weekend we are going to... myself and Craig and the pod, TNC Random Fandom, are going to be at the first ever Rochester Anime Fest at the Doubletree Hotel in Henrietta, New York, which is basically a suburb of Rochester. So they just call it the Doubletree Hotel Rochester. And I will be co-judging the cosplay contests, very similarly to what I did last April when I did the Comic-Con. So the Rochester Comic-Con, which is not associated with all the other cons that Rochester does. This is like a new upstart, something that this gentleman is trying to get nationwide. So it's just like a network of cons that he's starting, and Rochester is just gracious enough to say, hey, we want to be a part of this. And he was awesome enough to allow me to judge the cosplay contest once before, and reached out to me last week and said, hey, I got this anime con coming. Will you want to be in it? And I was like, yes. And then I reached out to his manager and I said, hey, I got a podcast. I got my my co-host with TNC Random Fandom. Can I bring him along? We can do some live streams. We can do some interviews with the guest, just to kind of get the word out there. And he's like, yeah, bring him along. So TNC Random Fandom Sunday from 10 to 5 will be at the Rochester Anime Fest, and I will be judging and last time we also emceed, so I'll also be co-emceeing the cosplay contest. And come out and see us, shake our hands, and
we can have some
card,
fun.
and we'll talk
Exactly.
all things geek, fandom, and anime. Teach me something.
And that's gonna be a fun one. Period. That'll be some fun for us to have some, get in. That's the whole point we started this show, Tommy. Interact with more fans, talk about whatever gets them excited. And obviously we're gonna see a plenty of passionate people, especially for that cosplay contest on Sunday. So
Yep. Hey, tonight, can you real quick before can you check to make sure that we got our comment section up? Because I don't seem to be able to ever get this thing working right.
It's working. Stop doing that.
Oh, sorry.
It doesn't go until somebody shows up.
Okay. All right. So go ahead.
Tell them. Show it for everybody. So
tell them what we're talking about tonight.
Tonight we're having a wonderful, fun time, and we're doing a little bit of a fourth dimension, if you will. So we're gonna, hop in the DeLorean, get your flex capacitor fluxing, whatever it might be. We're gonna talk to, in theory, some of our favorite fictional characters of all time. And we're just going to ask them some of the hard hitting questions. And thank you very much for the people that did actually get out there on our social media and give us some replies. I was very happy to get a few back that we were, some ideas on who we could talk to, who you wish you could talk to in fiction land, and be able to ask them some fun questions. We're going to get to those at the end of the show. So what we were planning was that Tommy and I would go back and forth, pick a person that we would like to, and then we're going to give about 5-10 minutes worth of questions for what you would like to ask those fictional characters back and forth. And Tommy, seeing I'm allegedly the host at this point of kicking this thing off, who would you like to talk to first in the world of fiction?
So, you really screwed me up with this whole concept, because at first you said pop culture icon. And so I was like thinking to myself,
I messed it up. I'm sorry.
You messed me up. You had the plan in your head. So I was going to allow you to do it. But so I actually wanted to look up and basically what the true definition of what a pop culture icon was. And honestly, it even says it's subject to interpretation, basically, but what the dictionary says
reality
is,
or not.
the definition of a pop culture icon is a person, character, or object that is considered a defining characteristic of an era or society. So there's a lot of things. So it's very subjective. So I actually wanted to talk to people that I either admired, like real people, and that I consider pop culture icons. But I will do this because in the spirit of this show, and I will give you real and fictional. And I am not going to take one of yours because I already know what it was, but you gave me one that I would definitely do, and that would be Luke Skywalker. Farm boy Luke Skywalker, hero of the rebellion, blew up the first Death Star, saved his father from the dark side at the very end. And I would like to know what was it like? Did you throw up when you found out that you kissed your sister?
I knew you were going to go there. Which is almost as bad as the one I led you down the street with. But to that point, there is an inherent, like, just, right? It's family somehow. It's just, it feels awkward or something like that. So the fact that I wonder, in just, flash that into reality where he's filming this whole thing, do you think him and Carrie Fisher went, wait, what? when they were
honestly,
after the fact?
I would say Mark Hamill and Carrie Fisher were going, ew, we kissed each other when they finally read the lines with that, oh, that's my brother. Oh crap. I kissed him. Let's see. She kisses him 3 times.
She might have just assumed kissed the Wookiee.
Right. So if I'm not mistaken, she kisses him 3 times. She kisses him on the Death Star before they swing across.
About to die.
Right. She kisses him on Hoth to kind of kick off Han. Yeah. And then there was a third kiss. I know there was a third kiss. Am I off?
It might be just the 2.
It may be just the 2.
I could have sworn there was 3 too, but
I'll think of 3. Yeah. But at the same time, so it's, no. And she kisses him on the Millennium Falcon when they rescue him from Bespin.
Yeah, but that was like the sisterly kiss on the head kind of like thing. You're going to be okay.
Right. So that
one was probably the most appropriate of the 3.
Right.
Definitely not the second one.
No. Ew, you kissed your brother.
I triple dog dare you, man. That's basically what it would normally come down to.
The look that Han gives Leia when she says, he's my brother, he kind of has this kind of puzzled and kind of like quirky like smile, like you kissed your brother. Okay, we could go all day long
we
about
get the
this.
Harrison Ford like finger waggle out of that whole thing either.
Get off my lawn.
Point, so because I made the joke that steered you down this one was if I was interviewing Luke Skywalker, I would have asked him for all the adversity and everything that you went through with this Death Star, being stuck on the planet Hoth, all this, your temple burning down was really what burned you out and made you go to middle of nowhere and hide for what turned out to be the movie The Last Jedi.
Right.
It seemed like you were getting your ass kicked for how many years in the rebellion, and then that was the final one. I don't know. That just seemed like it was a little awkward.
So here's another thing that I can throw out at you with Luke Skywalker. Was there any remorse? Was there any remorse of the thousands, maybe millions of people that he killed? That were just like, sanitation workers, and I'm pulling a lot of this from Clerks, I'm pulling a lot of this from Clerks. So, did they feel any remorse of the fact that they weren't all bad guys? Some of those guys were just like, you know what, I got to make a living.
Especially in the second
got
one,
a retirement plan, right? I got a retirement plan. I'm just a general contractor. I'm putting in plumbing in the second Death Star. What? Come on.
To that point, that is one of the best stupid things in movie history in the first movie of Clerks, where especially when that roofer comes in and tells him, I could have done this with the mob, and I knew the risk. I didn't take it. And then his friend took his referral and he got killed the next week by the mobsters. It is what it is, right? So totally get that one, but that is a good one. As far as silly things you could ask, do you feel any remorse, or was it the I'm the wartime hero thing, and this is good versus evil, and that's how the movie is 100% obviously pushing, tyrannical reign versus quote unquote democracy and the rebellion and everything. It's just how it was. But I agree with you wholeheartedly on that piece to that. So other questions I would ask him would be, outside the movies, and you and I being as dorky Star Wars fans that we are, we know in the Legends stuff that he actually, got to talk to Obi-Wan Kenobi more than they showed in the movies. He obviously, we saw in The Last Jedi, Yoda laughing at his ass. It's just all these other things. How often did he get visited by anybody else? And how often did his actual father, Anakin Skywalker, maybe visit him? Would be one of my questions I would ask Luke in that situation, sitting down with him. Oh, I hang out with him all the time. I drink, blue milk with him. What is it? So those are the kind of questions that popped into my head.
So,
is there any other ones you had?
So again, I wrote a list.
Silly questions.
I wrote a list of like real legit people that I would want to talk to. And so you know what?
Redefined everything. Go for it.
I am going to turn this around. I want to talk to some really, real people, and some of it's very heartfelt. Some of it is goofy, silly. So I'm going to say the very first one, and this is a person. Honestly, it's a real person, but it was a fictional person that I grew up with. And I honestly think that the way the world is going right now, I do believe that we all need a little Mr. Rogers, in our life right now, with the way the world is turning right now, and there's just nothing but just bad stuff happening. This world needs Mr. Rogers, needs some Fred Rogers right now, and I would ask him because there was a book that came out not too long ago, and it was, God, I can't remember. It's upstairs. Basically, it was the story of the postman that was on the show. I can't, and I'm drawing a blank right now, but there was a time in the 60s and 70s when African American kids were not allowed to swim in public pools or they had designated times when when white kids could swim, and then they would give designated times. It was total segregation. And Mr. Rogers had a time on the scene on his show where he actually stuck his feet in a pool to kind of cool down, a little kiddie pool, but he also brought in the postman with him, who was an African-American man, and he took off his shoes, and they both, and there was kind of this moment in time that said, we are not different, we are the same. And and I would like to just pick Mr. Rogers' brain and wonder, just get more information from him as to what brought him to his worldviews, what brought him to this notion of, everybody is.
Won't you be my neighbor?
Exactly, 100%. Won't you be my neighbor? I honestly, again, the world needs more Mr. Rogers, in my opinion.
No, that is a really good one, Tommy. And that's, like you said, it's a real person, but it is quote unquote a fictional character, but it was 100% him. That character wasn't anything different. It was him. It was so perfect, spot on. No, that would be one that would be a great one to pick the brain of and see just how like you mentioned, just what makes you tick, why in a political landscape and everything of what was going on in the 70s, how that he was so different and actually was a voice for the change to go the right direction. Good deal.
Now, and there's and the one thing that I will say though is that he wasn't perfect by any means. He wasn't there. He did things, and we can talk about this all day long, but he wasn't perfect, and part of that is brought up in the book. And we can talk about this, but I don't want to bring down the air of this, but again, I'll say it and then I'll leave it be. The world needs a little more Mr. Rogers right now. Bam. There you go.
Totally agree with you.
What about you? Bring us back into the happiness.
That's the reason we made this show, Tommy, was you and I were talking about podcasts and what we could do and everything. And it's like, we could do this, we could do this. And it's like, you know what, let's talk about something that we love, fun. It's going to have obviously points just like you made with Mr. Rogers there, but in generally uplift everybody, have fun, goof around, show everybody that we can all find these things that we love, which is why we didn't pick one specific topic for this show. And we just decide fandom, period. All it is what it is. So very cool, very interesting. So the next person that I thought of, Tommy, you mentioned that, and this is one of my favorite characters on the planet. I have grown up loving Indiana Jones, and I've gotten reintroduced to it at an all new level again. And it's not because of the new movies, but I played the brand new video game, Indiana Jones and the Golden Circle, from front to back already. And wow. That's all I have to say. You could literally sit down and watch this 10-hour story unfold, and it's better than the last two movies have been.
Really?
So,
what's the replayability of the game?
I'm already on my second playthrough, and I'm finding stuff I didn't even come close to finding, because there's just a bajillion puzzles. There's always an extra, bad guy to punch in the face. It's all that kind of good stuff. I can't believe how much stuff I missed just playing through the core storyline first, because it plays like a movie, and you are a first person view of Indiana Jones, which has never happened in any other video games too, but it was a really, really well done. It really does make you feel like Raiders of the Lost Ark, Last Crusade level. So knowing all those kind of things were out there, I'm okay, great. I've really seen now, in my opinion, 5 true Indiana Jones stories. How many other stories does he have that we haven't obviously been told?
Right.
So the question is where in the hell else have you been? Because he's been a lot of places in those movies, and he's always got a buddy wherever this place is, whether it's Short Round or Willie or Sala, his dad, obviously. Any of these guys from all these different cultural backgrounds and everything from all over the world. Just don't be that guy that's swinging a sword at him. It's going to be a bad time. So,
well, that's only if he has a sidearm with him.
Yes, there is that, because it didn't work out so well for him in Temple of the Doom. So, but it was those kind of things. You you talk about world travelers, archaeologists like that. You know, I've met a couple of archaeologists in my travels, and they, you know, even the stories they have of things they found, it's not obviously an Indiana Jones adventure, but just that history and living it, and then being that person that finally uncovers something. I would love to tap into what that feels like, even just in a conversation for a little bit.
Yeah, you know, so I have to ask you, did you ever watch The
Yeah.
Big Bang Theory?
I did. Not all of it, but I watched enough of it.
Did you see the episode where Sheldon is going to see like Raiders of the Lost Ark, or he's introducing it to Amy, and Amy, they watch it and everything, and Amy basically says, so what's the point? Indiana Jones being in this movie has really nothing to do with it, because the outcome would have still been the same. They would have opened up the Ark of the Covenant and they all would have melted and died.
Yes, sir. And just to be this point, the new video game ends that same way, but I still freaking enjoyed it.
so this game is,
but to that point, it's about the ride, right?
Right.
You know, you got to see it through him.
Of course.
But I totally agree with you. He's just that, you know, he summarizes in one of the movies as himself, and he's that bad penny. He just shows up, and crazy shit happens apparently, including literally biblical act of God stuff. But you're not wrong, and neither was she.
Real wrath of God type stuff. Dogs and cats living together, mass hysteria.
And there goes to one of my other doctors I'd like to interview. I don't know if that was on your list or not.
actually, the real person, Bill Murray, was on my list.
You go first with Bill Murray, then we'll talk about Bakeman.
Okay, all right. But I just want real quick, I wanted to ask you about this game. Is it on what console? Is it a console game, or is it a
it's a PC game, but it's only on Xbox, I think. Game Pass thing on PC right now, but it will be on the PS5, I think, in February or March.
Oh, nice. Okay.
It's a timed exclusive on the Xbox because Microsoft now owns Bethesda Studios, and which owns Machine Games, which is who made this game.
Okay.
So, and to that point, that's one of the many reasons I was actually really excited for this game. Machine Games actually made all the new Wolfenstein games, which are just, you know, basically
I had those.
Kill a bunch of Nazis. Okay, well, Blind's will punch them and steal their shit. That's only so much of a stretch.
When I had an Xbox One, I had the Wolfenstein remakes. But it's just it is what it is. So
but yeah, it will be out for everybody on PC, PlayStation, Xbox by I think spring.
So my next one, and we'll obviously talk about Dr. Venkman, is Bill Murray. Now, Bill Murray,
I don't think you said that right.
What?
Bill frickin' Murray.
Bill BFM. So
sorry, I went full Woody Harrelson from Zoo, or what is it?
Zombieland.
Freaking zombie movie. Yeah, that's
Zombieland. It. So Bill Murray is kind of like this this mythological creature. There's stories of him being an asshole. There's stories of him just being absolutely off the wall and silly. There's stories of him being very generous. I think one of the best stories that I
remember one of him showing up at a fraternity, or not a sorority house, and doing the girls' dishes and telling them they all need to hurry up and clean their rooms or something like that.
I'm sure that happened, but I've heard one where he just shows up. Somebody's like, you know, at like a fast food restaurant or something like that, and he comes up and he grabs some of the fries and looks him right in the eye and says, "Nobody's going to believe this ever happened," and just walked off. But
I think he's undertaken the fact that he is like a real life Bigfoot at
right,
this point.
Right. And you know, and he still plays golf, you know, all because of Caddyshack. He still plays golf. And you know, I've been a fan forever and a day. I love damn near every movie he's done, to include a lot of his serious works. He did a movie maybe it may have been 10 years now that he did it, but called St. Vincent. Great movie. I love that movie.
I remember that one.
And
So,
but I went on a kick of just 80s nostalgia and watching the original Meatballs.
there you go.
Obviously Ghostbusters 2. But I like the fact that they do the cameos in the newer Ghostbusters movies, to include the 2016 all-female cast, which I'm still a fan of that movie. I like that movie. It's a different Ghostbusters movie. It's not part of I'll take that back. It's part of the Ghostbusters world, but it's a different retelling, and I don't think it's gotten the respect that it deserves, because it was a good movie. You have too many fanboys out there that just completely just take it way out of context, and it's like, this ain't my
with a movie with those 4 women in it. There's no way in hell it wasn't going to be funny. And
100%.
then they made Thor the villain somehow. All right, fine.
Right. But again, Bill Murray, he's charitable, and again, like you said, he's like the real life Bigfoot. He pops up at the most oddball places, and I would like to know, out of his illustrious career, what movies did he do that he truly honestly believed in? And then I would ask, were you able to bury the hatchet with Harold Ramis? And because there was a little bit of a rift there for a while, and with Harold's untimely death, was he able to reconcile with potentially an old friend? I know that he's been known to not get along. Same thing with Chevy Chase. Him and Chevy Chase kind of had a little bit of a thing, but Chevy Chase also, Chevy Chase worked with the other Murray brothers, on a bunch of different projects. Yeah, exactly. So it's like, what makes Bill bad?
I think it was still those Saturday Night Live years of him leaving and all that kind of stuff that is still boiled over and never went anywhere. But to that point, I agree with you. But the one thing I would ask him is, when I'm going to quote one of his silly cameos here, does he truly regret Garfield?
I would.
There's your Zombieland reference. But to that point, what kind of other things would you ask somebody like Bill Murray if you had him cornered, Tommy? That there's got to be something mulling around your head outside my stupid Garfield comment.
So, as you know, he does a lot of he's allowed his likeness to be used by the Chive. So the Chive is a charitable organization. They do a lot of charities for different charities. They and I remember being really into the Chive when they first started out, like back in the early 2000s. And so, and the first BFM, Bill fucking Murray shirt that they had was just a picture of his face. And then they had a second one, which was the 3D glasses. And those were always a limited run. The moment they said that we got a run of these, people were online just trying to get these shirts. Now they just make them all the time, because the Chive has gotten big. And
for charity, why not?
The next thing that I would ask is, would you allow your NIL, your name, image, and likeness be used even past your passing, just like the same way that James Earl Jones did in regards to Star Wars? He's given permission to use AI, to use his voice, to use his likeness and whatnot, so that the legacy of his characters can continue on. Would he allow that? And maybe he already has, and I just haven't done any research.
Maybe.
So.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of that stuff's under lock and key on somebody's will too. You know what I mean?
100%.
Especially being such a new thing too. How many people have actually redone their wills to actually include that? Not everybody's like, T Swift that's all on top of that stuff, it seems like, in 5 seconds with Spotify and everything
Right.
else.
And that's what
Yeah.
I would wonder is if they would want to, and eventually I think while actors are alive and working and doing it, I can understand. I don't want AI involved. I don't want them taking my parts. I don't want them taking my face. I don't want them taking my voice. I understand that. But once you get to that point in your life and your career where you're pretty much just you're on borrowed time at that point, and I'm not saying that Bill Murray's on borrowed time, but just in general, maybe you want to solidify your image
Forever legacy.
your forever legacy, and something that can always be used, and then if you have family, they continue to reap the benefits of the fruits of your labors.
So no, that's a good one. Especially segue points for you. So Dr. Peter Venkman. That would be one of the characters that he obviously has, and now has taken on a new life too with the new Ghostbusters movies. I'm not saying that he's going to be in movies forever as Dr. Peter Venkman, but you're not wrong with that whole sing and dance there as far as his likeness and everything. My first question for Dr. Peter Venkman is, first things, what do you bring to the scientific table, and are you better off as a game show host? Exactly.
Tune in next week.
And
that's actually a really good question.
In my head.
That's actually a really good question because as a scientist, you're always seeking truth, right? You're always trying to prove or disprove a hypothesis. And even though he was kind of like the cool scientist, he wasn't a Leonard or a Sheldon or anything like that. He was actually like, this playboy with a very bad receding hairline, but says the bald guy says the bald guy on the podcast.
Yeah. But at that point, the first time you actually legit see him, he's literally shocking a dude sitting there next to a blonde. And I'm sorry to say, but the blonde wasn't seeming to get anything wrong. So
I loved the scene in the not in Afterlife when it's like an end credit scene where they show Dana Barrett shocking him. That was awesome.
It's about time Sigourney Weaver got her 2 cents in on Dr. Venkman on camera.
Yeah. And so that brings up another question is to kind of solidify or to kind of get some closure. Did him and Dana Barrett get together and married, and did they raise her child?
That evil.
Oh,
bless
me, oh Savior.
Exactly.
So did they raise their child or her child, and did he adopt? You could go into this whole family thing and whatnot, and did Louis Tully and Janine have little Louis Tullys running around and
little red-haired giant Coke glass kids with the best like screaming out at somebody voice outside that chick from the Austin Powers movies.
And so going back to the Ghostbusters thing though, if it was almost implied, it was implied that Janine wanted to be with Dr. Spangler. And then all of a sudden, you fast forward and you have all these cartoons that tell different stories of the same core group. All of a sudden, no longer is it, Dr. Spangler and Janine, it's Janine and Louis Tully for some god awful reason. I would have liked to have actually seen a Spangler Tully, or not Louis Tully, but Janine Melnitz. All suited up.
Yeah, there you go. With their own spores, mold, and fungus collection.
So go ahead. So I've done a lot of talking. So Craig, give me, you know what? I'm going to ask you because I know you have a few, but if you had a legit real life person, living or dead, that you wish you could talk to, who would that be?
So I actually have one that I'm going to qualify as both.
Okay.
And I think you know who I'm talking about here, and I love Alice Cooper. Alice Cooper is the king of shock rock, who is 100% a character that he actually, I think, drowned out Vincent Damien Fear in his body and, split personality him for a million years. And then he finally got sober, and you actually, have Alice Cooper by name during the day, and then Alice Cooper by character during all of his shows.
Mm-hmm.
Alice Cooper in the daytime is an avid golfer.
Mm-hmm.
Alice Cooper on stage chops his own head off. There is a very, very varying line there. And I would love to just pick his brain on the conception of that character, what was on his mind on certain things. You do hear of some of the stories, but there is so much probably to that outside of the fact that they wanted to just be like the, horror, band at the time. But the fact is they were amazing musicians, all of them in the band at that time too. It wasn't just the fact that Alice was, like I said, ripping up, chickens on stage and all the horrible other stupid stuff that got out in the media in the 70s. But there was a lot going on there. And he is actually closer to that character in the Wayne's World movie when he's talking about Milwaukee than he is closer to Alice Cooper. He's a very articulated, formulated person as far as the brains going on there, which is saying a lot after how many brain cells he probably did kill with booze in the 70s. Well, but I would love to scratch his brain and see how that character really went full concept.
So, I that's a good one. And you again, you bring out Alice Cooper in a sense that's like kind of left field, but it's not, because I would say if you think about it, Alice Cooper and Kiss, they both had the theatrics, but Alice Cooper wrote better songs. I look at Alice Cooper songs as actually very well written songs. If you actually take the time and listen to the lyrics, which a lot of people don't, and kind of find the meaning in it and be like, wow, but again, Kiss, not taking anything away from Kiss. I like Kiss. As a matter of fact, you can see the Kiss shirt right there when they toured with Def Leppard, great
as well.
Great show. Yep. It's a great show, but at the same time, they're not necessarily writing Shakespeare, whereas,
Love Gun wasn't. Sorry. I got nothing to finish that joke with other than that.
Watch the movie Role Models.
I love that movie.
But that's exactly it. Is Alice Cooper wrote some pretty provocative songs, but they were well written provocative songs. They coincide with his stage presence and his stage show that told, basically, if you have the opportunity to go to an Alice Cooper show and actually witness it, where it's him as a headliner, where he has a free reign of his entire set and he does the whole stage production, go to it, watch it. It's a spectacle. It's awesome. It's
highly recommended.
Yes. You've seen them a few times. I've only seen them once.
6, 7 times. I don't know what it was, Tommy. I wasn't planning it that way. So for like 7 years in a row, and this is before COVID, because the last year I saw him was COVID, and actually Hailstorm was the headliner. He was the opener for Hailstorm, which great, fine, happy both ways. He would always do that because he still golfs and he likes being able to golf everywhere. So he actually basically goes on tour every summer so he can golf all around the world.
Right.
So
And he could still
he
he could
comes around.
go on and do an hour and a half set and then get off the stage and probably get 9 holes.
Yeah. And he still does his radio show, Nights with Alice Cooper and stuff too. So which is on at like 10, 11 o'clock at night. So there you go. But to that point, I saw him like the first time it was like a $5 concert with Anvil of all people in Buffalo at the Naval Yard. I'm like, all right, it's $5. There's no way in hell I'm not going.
Right.
And then the following year I saw him with Aerosmith. The year after that, he was with Motley Crue, and it was like every year he was with another band I wanted to see. So I'm like, oh, well, now it's a no-brainer ticket because I'm going to get to see Alice Cooper again. And Tommy, I was not a big Alice Cooper fan. Seeing that show made me a big Alice Cooper fan.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved them beforehand, but it wasn't like this thing that I'm talking about here that I would have been this dove into that character and this dove into him as a person that I would like to just have a chat with him and get to, brass tacks and talk some fun, because I'm sure he's one of those people that just has a wealth of stories and we've only heard this much of it.
Right. And I agree with you. He's more likely to be the backstage Alice Cooper in Wayne's World than the actual persona that he is on stage. He probably drinks his tea and he's probably got pinkies out and talking about shooting 18 holes at Augusta.
Yeah. I would it would be like, it wouldn't shock me if I walked in and he's like all of a sudden just in a tux, all pressed everything, and then all of a sudden just like, hey, by the way, it's Milwaukee, which is Algonquin for the good land. So, but anyway,
does this guy know how to party or what? Oh God.
Yeah, we're there.
So
we got 20 more minutes. Give me a couple, or give me one at least.
So I got one, and this is actually gonna go into something that I know that you are going to throw out there. But I had a list of directors. I had a list of people that are musicians that I would love to have talked to, but because we have a short amount of time left, I'm going to throw out somebody who I actually really got to really enjoy, especially during my Marine Corps years, which was pretty much throughout the mid to late 90s, and that's Kevin Smith. Kevin Smith as the director, yes, Jay and Silent Bob, and that's going to lead into what you're going to go into, I'm pretty sure. But
I'm going to leave that one as part of this conversation because they're really the same person.
Yes, but I like Kevin Smith because he is a fan himself. He geeks out the same way that we do. He appreciates the culture. He appreciates comics. He loves film. He loves filmmaking. And back in the early PlayStation 3 days, back when PlayStation actually had like their own channel, but you had to have a PlayStation 3 in order to see it. He actually had a show on that called Spoilers. And I remember
that.
I remember, going, and I think he did maybe 1 or 2 seasons. It may have been 2 seasons. I'm not sure. But I remember sending him a message through the messaging system that they had there at the time. And he actually responded. And my question was, are you going to do another season of Spoilers? Because I really enjoy it, because it gave me exposure to movies that I probably would have never even thought twice about watching. And he responded to me and said, we are in the works. We're hoping to do another season, but it's a time thing, and I was like, I had to, I was like, that was like, Kevin Smith messaged me. I'm all, yeah, all right. But I would have to ask him, basically, I know that a lot of his movies, he casts his friends, like legit friends, like Jason Mewes is his friend, and I know that Jay Mewes basically says that he attributes him to his sobriety because Jason Mewes had issues at some point, but I know that he says that he saved his life, and and I believe it. But I would ask him as what was it that got him hooked on trying to make these off the wall indie movies that told some really goofy off the wall stories, but at the same time are so relatable. Like I can see that happening. I lived that, those kinds of things, So I would ask
watching those movies, you always knew a guy or a girl that was like some character in the movie. That was
you knew
like
a Randall.
Yes.
37 dicks in a
So.
row.
Oh my
Those
God.
who knows Clerks knows that line.
Yeah. In a row?
Try not to suck your dick on their way to the parking lot. Hey, get back here.
Yeah. Yep.
So,
I just watched have you watched the third one?
I have seen the third one.
It was a hell of a come around point.
I'm
a complete it, though.
When it comes to that. I have to see it all.
Yep, there is that. But he's the little group of friends and everything that you mentioned. He's built up a lot of people's careers. Rosario Dawson, I don't know if she'd be in the movies that she is and turns into Ahsoka Tano without having some goofball like Kevin Smith. Maybe give her that little extra push into the nerd realm that she's been in because of Clerks 2 and so many other movies. It's been very fun to watch over the years. And to that point, I would agree with you that I would love to just sit down and pick his brain, which we've tried to do for this show. Hopefully he responds. We'll see. To that point, anybody that's watching this show in the Rochester area, Tommy and I are thinking about going down to go see them when they're in Ithaca in February. So we'll see what happens if we can see Jay and Silent Bob live one night.
Yeah, we'll have to see. I would love to know. Aaron and I are planning on not moving, but having a mini
going
break.
Somewhere.
So so go ahead.
Yep. But on that note, I would love to know more about him and Jay when they were younger, to build off of that point that you were talking about there, because there is obviously a close friendship there, and you see that in the literally silly shenanigans between Jay and Silent Bob in every one of the movies that they're in. It doesn't look like they're acting. They're like literally trying to get each other to just die laughing and goofing around and having a fun time, and that's why it comes off so genuine, because it is real. I've heard some things and stories with him talking about how George Carlin was obviously in little cameo bits, and then he was in the Dogma movie as the Catholic priest trying to push Buddy Christ. So those kind of things, and I'd love to just know a little bit about that circle and how he's come across all these people, what fun stories there are there, because I'm sure there's plenty. And that's just it.
Yeah, I would love to just sit, be a fly on the wall and hear the stories. He does talk a lot about the things that he's done and inspirations, but it's different if you're actually there witnessing it and having the conversation with the person, as opposed to just watching it on YouTube or whatever. Again, he was a large part of my young adult years while I was in the Marine Corps. I mean, we watched Clerks, we watched Mallrats.
Any of the View Askew.
I had all the soundtracks because I was like, I had to,
They're awesome.
yeah.
And not to mention, he actually gave Stan Lee his cameo start. Mallrats.
So Stan Lee is actually on my list because I heard something that was very disheartening for me, and
okay.
But I will defer to you because again,
I would love to hear the Stan Lee stuff, because he is obviously on my list of real people I wish I could have talked to.
Yeah.
And that's not just because of this crazy wall of Funkos and pop culture stuff behind me that has literally a Stan the Man right there too. So But yeah, go ahead, Tommy.
So I don't know the legitimacy of this. Obviously this could be, but I saw this on a YouTube thing that I was watching not too long ago,
Yes.
and how basically his people that are closest to him, whether it's his family or his handlers, if you will, and the later years of his life were legitimately forcing him to do these cameos, to do these appearances at Comic-Cons and stuff like that, where and they kind of show these like kind of grainy videos of him, and he's just kind of not there, but he's just, okay, true believer, and he's, signing his name, and to me that's very disheartening, because you want, to me, he's a hero to a lot of people, to a lot of collectors, to a lot of people that love comic book culture. Just, I mean, he's created a world for people to lose themselves in. And
you can make the argument that Stan Lee is the founder of American folklore, and you really could get away with that.
Definitely
mythology of Americans.
and I remember it was probably about about 5, 6, 7 years ago or so. He was going to be down at the New York City Comic-Con, and that was back when my daughter Jocelyn was really into Marvel stuff, and I was like, maybe that would be a trip to go down just to see Stan Lee and to see his, just be in the presence of greatness, if you will. And but after seeing this, I was thinking to myself, that's horrible. I would not want to see a Stan Lee that didn't want to be in a place where he didn't want to be. He may have just wanted to be sitting on a beach somewhere going, I had a good life. Instead, he's being pushed around and brought to so many places that he doesn't want to be at, and if that is legitimately right, if that's legitimately true, I feel sad for him.
Yeah. And not to mention they've all been fighting over his estate since he passed, unfortunately. But to that point, I hope that's not true. I really do, because the man is, and I would have been perfectly fine if he did say what you want to do and just said peace off and go lay off on a beach somewhere. He earned that. That's everybody's right to be able to do that and to say what's up when they want to. But from all the interactions that I've ever seen with him, he doesn't look like he's putting on a face. It's not I'm here to sign autographs. I'm here to, and maybe it's just the stuff you see on TV and things that I miss some of this, but I just never see any of that kind of thing. And he looks like he's always having a fun time. And then you hear interviews like Robert Downey Jr. when they were filming one of the last movies that he actually was in for a cameo, and he more or less complimented Robert Downey Jr. on he sees him as Iron Man. It wasn't just him playing a character. It was, you are now in Stan Lee's head, the personification of Tony Stark and Iron Man.
If he was still drawing him, he'd draw
that. Correct. I don't think he'd be making that kind of a compliment if he wasn't all there, would be the other part of that. So, and to that point, I know him and his lovely wife obviously had a great life together too, which is just as shocking that the two of them were obviously in the world we live in, that they lived together as long as they did and had a great life. So props to Stan Lee and everything that he's touched over the years, obviously. I think we got time. I got to sneak in a few things here from our fans, Tommy, because there was a couple that came through in comments that I feel like I'd be doing a disservice to some of our fun here, because there's some fun ones that came through in the comments here.
I saw those.
Soon to be guest for our next episode, Monty Python is going to be the theme of the evening. Your friend Kate actually said she would love to talk to Ron Swanson from Parks and Rec, of all people. And it was I just asked his opinion on different people and the things they complain about. and just he'd be able to, I love that character that he plays. Ron Swanson is just
he's the epitome of every man
like that. Yes.
He's every man Jack.
Yes. And then to that point, blunt is all hell. And if you don't know how to work a tool, he's going to call you a wimp.
Yeah.
Where's the other one that they had? Oh, she's a big Firefly fan. She wanted to talk to Wash.
So I'm not, honestly, I've only caught a little bit of Firefly. So I can't call myself a fan, and I can't say that I know who Wash is. Can you enlighten me?
I wish I could go a little further on that one, but it's the guy that plays Wash is a gentleman you and I know from many of voice acting, many of other movies outside of this, and he's honestly one of my silly favorite go-to characters, and that is Steve the Pirate from Dodgeball.
Oh, yeah. Okay. I know the face, so yes. Okay.
Yes, now you got it.
Yep. I kind of figured. So when she gets on the show. Oh wait.
Alan
She just. Okay, there you go.
She's monitoring this. I'm sorry, Kate. That's not one I've unfortunately had the pleasure of getting into, but I need to for my own nerddom sanity. There's this time thing.
Kate, remind. So if you're on there, Kate, which obviously you are, you're the unofficial third person on this. Because you and Mary are like the legit on here all the time. What is your last name? Because I want to make sure that we get your last name right. And I know if I pull up my Instagram, I can probably pull it up. So what is your last name, Kate? Hurry up, because we got time.
I got it. I'll get there. Lind. Kate Lind.
Lind? Okay.
Yes.
Schmidt.
Oh,
no,
Schmidt.
Schmidt.
Why did it say Lind?
Are you just
anyway?
You're looking at her screen name.
It's what's showing up here. That's all it's showed up. So I thought it was the full name. My bad.
Okay, so Kate Schmidt.
Classy act we have here. Kate Schmidt. Next week, Monty Python. I'm looking forward to it. I swear to God, there will be no extra shrubbery talk or, how many acorns can a red lane swallow carry?
There's only a flesh wound.
Stupid comments from the Peanut Gallery. My friend the Heck, who will eventually be on for the wrestling episode that didn't happen a few weeks ago, when we finally actually do that one. He wants to interview Batman. Yes, at the Heck, Eric Rosenheck, my buddy. He wants to interview Batman, and not any Batman, Adam West Batman, and he wants to specifically ask him, do you regret creating the Batsy? Exactly. And seeing the interviews I've seen of Adam West, no, he doesn't regret.
As a matter of fact, it is 100% emblazoned in everybody who's ever seen the old 60s television show that will always go down with that and the bat shark repellent.
That was the first thing I went to first. And I'm like, why didn't he ask about the shark repellent? It's about the dancing? It's the 60s, isn't it? But to your point, the dancing is known just as much as the pow, wham, like our logo. That's the reason it came from.
I still do that at weddings. I still do this. The whole finger over the eyes thing.
It's because it's fun. It's shenanigans, right? And then the other one that I really, got to give my shout out to my friends from my other podcast here. They're the Canadians about Wolverine. How come you don't embrace your Canadian roots, Mr. Wolverine? As in Logan. And I wrote back to him, and I'm like, I know, right? He quit Alpha Flight, which is the team that's all Canadian, basically X-Men, before he went to the X-Men. So,
listen here, Bob,
that was not fair.
I can get Timmy Hose in Rochester.
Can get Timmy Hose all over the world now. Tim Hortons is known for.
I got Timmy Hose in Afghanistan.
Not hockey.
I got Timmy Hose in Afghanistan. It was, but actually it was the Canadians that brought it. They brought it with them, so they actually had their own little.
So you had to go to the Joint Force Base to.
I had to go to the Canadian side of of Kandahar in order to get some Timmy Hose, and I was like, this is like being at home. And they're like, oh, you're from Canada? I'm like, no, Rochester.
Who says there's no cooperation amongst military people? You know, right there is what a joint force looks like. Everybody, we share Tim Hortons, and then we'll give you some McDonald's. Sorry. Anyway, Tommy, is there anybody else you would like to? I got one more. If you want to kill our last 2 minutes here with a quick one.
You know what? We're gonna end up going over anyway. So go ahead and take it away, good friend Craig.
So before we do our evening sign off here, Dr. Emmett Brown.
Oh, I knew you were gonna go there.
I had to go Back to the Future. It's one of my favorite movies, and the reason that what I want to know more about the inventions that he didn't succeed with. It's what were the failures that finally led to the knock on the head in inventing the flux capacitor and time travel? Because there has to be a slew of them. We only saw this many of them, including the big mind reading hat and
the amplifier.
Yeah, because that worked so well. Perfect way to start a movie. That was almost as good as like every James Bond opening ever, with him just going and boom.
But that's a good point, because he ends up staying back to be with Clara, correct? Is that the right name?
Yep.
But he ends up building another time machine. So he obviously has, he's still going throughout time and everything. So it's like, okay.
Yeah. So that might have just proven my point on how many failures there were, because those kids weren't young kids that came back with him. So he had to fail that many more times with the train before he got to work as a time train.
Jules and Verne.
Yes.
Jules Verne.
Yeah.
And those of you who don't know who Jules Verne is,
you should.
Time machine. You should.
Exactly.
He wrote the Time Machine.
Yes. And isn't that he's the one that the famous quote's coined after, right? Too, that he, science fiction's only fiction until you can prove it, or something like that. Because many of the things that he wrote about became certain levels of real, right? Einstein says time travel is possible. We do go 1,000 leagues under the sea, I believe, is another one of his books. So there's all these pieces, right?
That's a show idea that we should probably try to table talk about, is potentially like shows or authors and stuff that whether it's science fiction, whether it's based in reality,
stuff that became fact or real.
Some that right. I mean, a lot of technologies that were based on some things that were thought up in Star Trek and Star Wars, and so technologies that were eventually because they were inspired by the stuff that we saw on the screen. And I actually had a conversation about shows that actually kind of freaked me out when I was a little kid, back in the the 80s. And there was this one show, it was narrated by Orson Welles. So anybody who remembers Orson Welles, big, large man, bearded, had a very distinct voice. And it was called The Man Who Saw Tomorrow, and it was about Nostradamus. And anybody who knows who Nostradamus is, he was supposed to be this cleric who could see the future, and he was allegedly he predicted World War II, and he predicted Hitler, and he predicted all these different events. And eventually, yeah, exactly. and so and as a little kid watching this, and the way that it was presented, and having limited little kid knowledge of these things that actually happened, it scared me, because it talked about World War III and how World War III was going to happen, and when it was going to happen, and but
don't go full conspiracy theory on me, but that's one of them right now about the Middle East.
The man, sorry, I think it was the man in the blue turban. I think he references. So it's so I maybe we should talk about that someday. But anyway. But yeah,
enough Doomsday Preppers out there. That might be a good fandom show. Oh, sorry.
as I'm in my bunker.
Yeah, exactly. So anyway, from your underground lair, Tommy, tell everybody one last time where we're going to be on Sunday, and then we're going to get the heck out of here.
On Sunday, we will be at the Doubletree Hotel Rochester in Henrietta, New York, which is a suburb of Rochester, at the Rochester Anime Fest from 10 to 5. I will be hosting and co-hosting and co-judging the cosplay contest, and my good buddy Craig Borden over here will be doing some pod stuff with us, and he will be out there, the man on the streets, doing some interviews, getting some pictures, talking to vendors, shaking hands, and handing out cards, because that's what we're going to do to get the word out. But that's where we will be on Sunday. And then on Sunday, our very first Return to Sunday show, our very first show of the new year, new season, we will have Miss Kate Schmidt, who's one of our biggest fans, and I will say probably the biggest fan, if not the next to biggest fan.
Only fan.
Wrong website.
Oh yeah, very, very. No, not that one. I meant singular fan.
We got to be on it. Wow.
One is the loneliest number, right? Go Beatles.
But Kate is going to come on, and she is going to talk about her fandom, which is Monty Python. And if we get into it, because she also says that she is a lover of British television shows, not the science fiction shows, mind you. So don't expect any Doctor Who crap. But I take that back. I take that back. I like the Doctor Who. I actually do like Doctor Who, so it's not crap. But
anyway, get in your TARDIS. Let's go.
Yep. So Kate is going to be on with us at 7:00 on Sunday. So it's going to be an action-packed day for us. We will probably have some filler material that we'll throw out there, just so you can see it. So if we do any live streams, they'll probably be on Instagram Live, unless Craig starts doing some really crazy stuff to where we're like on YouTube Live while we are at the con,
budget permitting.
So if you can, make your way out to the Rochester Anime Fest and come and see us, shake our hand and take a card, and who knows, we may interview you as a fan of all things nerd culture on the TNC Random Fandom.
I couldn't have said the sign off better myself. So thank you again, everybody. Make sure you listen to us wherever you get your podcasting pleasure from, and we'll see you very shortly, and in person and on the podcast. Cheers, everybody. Have a great night.
Good night, everybody.
Bye.